So with COVID-19 hitting us around the world, it's really impacted on triathletes' ability to do their swim training. Pools have generally been closed across the world, and many triathletes, if they have the opportunity, have been taking to the open water to get their swim training done. So here are my 6 top tips for your open water swimming. Tip number 1, always have a look at the weather forecast before you go swimming. So if you're swimming in an open water beach, where we are here at Noosa Main Beach, the weather can have a significant impact on the conditions that you're in. A bit of wind can really increase the chop, so it's a lot choppier. The rain obviously can increase chop, or if it's going to be a clear, fine day, you can have almost glass-like conditions. The same applies if you're swimming in a lake or a reservoir. You still want to know what the weather is going to be like before you go into the open water. So tip number 1 is always look at the weather forecast, so you'll have an idea what the conditions might be like when you're in the water. Tip number 2 is around safety. So always know where you're going to be swimming. So if you're swimming at a beach, obviously a patrol beach is much better than a non-patrol beach. So looking at whether it's a patrol beach. If you're swimming on your own, making sure you're telling someone your plan for the session, how long it's going to be, where you're planning to swim, and also if you're on your own, obviously a nice bright swim cap can help. If you're swimming in an area where there are other users such as surfers, paddle users, boats, a nice bright swim cap can make sure that you can be seen by other people that are using it. But ideally try where you can swim with a partner or with a group, so you're covering that safety side of things. So tip 3 is all about how to sight. So it's really common for people when they're swimming in the open water to be doing a lot of zigzagging, swimming not necessarily in a straight line. And it's not so much because they're unbalanced as a swimmer, is that they don't know how to sight effectively. So generally with your sighting, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can sight, so as you're taking your breath, you lift your head up and then turn, or you turn to take your breath and then you lift your head up. But you're just lifting your head up enough so you can see whether you're swimming towards a point or a particular landmark at the beach, or maybe it's a boat that you can see, or you can see the boys in a race. So you're practicing your sighting. But that sighting, you don't want to lift your head right up out of the water, you're only lifting it just so your nose comes above the surface of the water, and ideally you're timing it with your breath. So either just before your breath or just after. Tip number 4 is all about having a high stroke rate. So when you're in the open water, the conditions are generally going to be quite different to what you experience in a pool. When you're swimming in a pool, it's flat, it's calm, the environment is controlled. But when you're swimming in the open water, especially when it's choppy, you need to have a high stroke rate. And the reason you have high stroke rate is so you can get in what's called the power position, or getting the catch and the purchase of the water. The quicker you can get into that position, the more purchase, the more power, the more forward movement you get. If you've got a nice, long, slow stroke, which can be good for pool swimming, it's not really going to help you in the open water. So it's about having a quick recovery over the top, getting into that power position as quick as you can. So it's about practicing a nice high stroke rate. Tip number 5 is about having the right equipment. So it's winter here in Australia, and generally even if you're in the northern hemisphere, some of your open water conditions can be still quite cool in the open water, so it's about having a proper fitting wetsuit. So the wetsuit that you're using, making sure it's the proper wetsuit for you in terms of it fitting you correctly. If you go to our how to put on a wetsuit video, which we'll put a link in here, it'll show you how to put that wetsuit on properly, and so when you've got the wetsuit on properly, you'll have a much more effective session because you're wearing the wetsuit as it's meant to be worn and it's fitting you correctly. Also with things like the goggles, and I mentioned before about the swim cap, sometimes you can use things like paddles in the water. So making sure that you have the right equipment for the open water. Generally if the temperature is below 19 to 20 degrees Celsius, it can be a little bit cool, so you probably want to be using a wetsuit. And the final tip, tip number 6, is about having a plan for the session. So just don't get in there and think, well, what am I going to do today? I'm going to swim 30 minutes, 40 minutes and see how I feel. But actually have a plan for the session, because you get into a pool and you can do 50s or 25s. Often you'll have a structured routine or plan that you're going to adopt for a pool session, you need to do the same with an open water session. Have a plan for their session. Is it going to be an easy, longer aerobic swim, or is it going to be a swim that you might start easy, finish fast, or you're going to practice some of your skills like sitting on feet, drafting if you're with other people, or you're going to do some speed work or some open water starts, that type of thing. Have a real plan for the session so you maximise the time that you're in the open water.